So originally we were going to talk last week, and since that time, I've got all these notes from your book. I really want to cover some of the highlights. But in the time between then and now, we've had three terrorist attacks on American soil. We've had the press secretary say that this is a war of narratives and that we've debunked the narrative. We've had Chris Hayes say that he was relieved that no guns were used in these attacks, although guns were used to take down the terrorists, fortunately. The person who found the second bomb thought it was a science experiment, maybe a clock, I'm not sure. If it had been a clock, I'm sure everything would have turned out fine. And Obama has come out and said that ISIS is a failed cause. Their ideology is being undermined, and Iraq and Syria are places where they're losing ground, despite the fact that we're being attacked here at home. If I was a Martian from outer space, can you explain to me what exactly is going on here?
Yes, very simply. America and the West is in mortal danger from something I like to call the global jihadist movement. It is an organizational conspiracy that has been going at least for 90 years in its modern form since the Muslim Brotherhood was established in 1928. If you look at the last 7 years, we have been increasingly losing it. Duke University, which is not a hotbed of crypto-conservatism, published a report last year called Muslim American Involvement in Violent Extremism. All of your viewers can download it. Just look at Figure 1. Figure 1 should be an eye-opener to everybody. Since they have collected information on every jihadi plot in America since 9/11. 2015, by far, saw the highest number of jihadi plots on U.S. soil since that awful day 15 years ago. So the bad guys are winning. One last data point for anybody who wants to drink the Kool-Aid of, they're on the ropes and they're the JV team. A couple of data points. According to Site Intelligence Group, that's SITE, excellent counterterrorism website, since June the 2nd of this year, outside of Iraq and Syria, so outside the war zone, there has been a jihadi attack every 83 hours. Not 83 days, every 83 hours. Let's bring it back home. Let's talk about America. With the recent arrest just now in New Jersey, we have seen in the last 2 years, since the caliphate was declared by ISIS from the Grand Mosque at Mosul, 112 people linked to ISIS arrested or killed in America. Not 12, not 32, 112 from all over the country. If you prorate that by month, we are arresting 300% more ISIS suspects in America per month than Al-Qaeda suspects. So I'll let your viewers decide for themselves based upon the empirical evidence. Do they feel safer or not?
In your book, you mentioned this is the longest war, most protracted war the United States has ever fought. And despite what Brother Obama says, we've never been weaker in terms of our position in this war. I mean, Iraq and Syria, they're losing ground. Didn't we control Iraq a couple of years ago? 100%. Help me understand. The math's fuzzy for me. Maybe I'm just a guy from the sticks.
The trouble is that there's a narrative that has to be maintained that's coming out of the White House. And if you countermand that narrative, you will get in trouble. Last year, it was leaked that 60 Central Command intelligence analysts complained that their analysis of ISIS was being doctored, censored, or lost. Why? Because the White House wanted to hear that ISIS is losing, that we're winning. And when the analysts looked at the ground and said, look, they're not, they're actually expanding, that analysis, if it didn't match the preconceived political requirements, was doctored or was lost. We had problems, serious problems, during the Vietnam War, but we never had 60 analysts say they were being censored. So it's not about reality. You have to understand, for this administration and for the left and the commentariat, it isn't about reality. It is all about spin.
So one more question before I pull this back to your book. You mentioned in an article that I read about leaders high up in authority, if they ask the wrong questions or suggest the wrong answers, they find the door and they're no longer involved in the hierarchy. How high are you allowed to go? Because you haven't been afraid to say these, slay these sacred cows.
Well, look, I'm in a very enviable position. I left government service 2.5 years ago. I am free to speak my mind, so I've gotten it to the very top of the military. So I've briefed the commandant of the Marine Corps before he became the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. I brief regularly three-star generals. I brief the director of the Defense Intelligence Agency. So when it comes to the war fighters, the men in uniform, the people at the sharp end, there's really limited obstacles. But the issue is the people above them in the expensive suits. I haven't been invited to the White House. This may shock you, but I don't expect to be, because I'm not going to tell them the things they want to hear in advance. So there is clearly a filter. There's that famous glass ceiling that Hillary shattered. Well, there's still a cast iron ceiling inside U.S. government, and it doesn't apply to sexual equality. It applies to the reality of the threat we face as Americans.
Hell yeah! Hell yeah! Hell yeah! Hell yeah! Hell yeah!
But I'm a big fan of money. I like it. I use it. I have a little. I keep it in a jar on top of my refrigerator. I'd like to put more in that jar. That's where you come in.